All right, so here are the objectives that we are hoping to cover today. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a very beginner basics of JavaScript class. My hope is by the end of today, you'll leave here with a better understanding of what JavaScript is, how it is different from the other basic languages like HTML and CSS, how it fits together, and what it's used for. We're just going to get some basic definitions of basic terms you'll hear in JavaScript. We'll go over what the basic structure of the code looks like. You're going to hear some syntax, and if you're not really sure what syntax means, we are going to cover that as well. And we will get some hands-on experience, hopefully by the end of class, by practicing. We're going to create a pop-up, a brewery age checker pop-up box for a website. And the instructions for that hands-on material exercise, you should have received it by email. But if you didn't get a chance to check your email, or if you had problems accessing it, let us know and we can shoot that over to you as well. And again, if you'd like to take a minute to introduce yourselves in the chat, feel free to. And again, we'll be sharing some important resources if you want to further your coding education. These resources are available with a Charlotte Mecklenburg Library card. If you don't have a card and you live in Mecklenburg County, we can tell you after class how to get a card. It's free if you live in the county or if you go to school in the county. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So can anyone tell me what they think JavaScript is, what it's used for? And it's okay if you don't know. If that's the purpose of us coming here today. So hopefully you can get an idea of what it is. Has anyone here heard of HTML or CSS? Well, if you're not sure, I'm going to show us a couple of videos that hopefully will give us, oh, so you've got no background with Java. And I will stop you right there, Jorge. Java and JavaScript are not the same thing. So I can tell you that much. You will leave here knowing that they aren't the same thing today, but I don't know anything about Java. But I am going to share something in the video that's going to hopefully get us a little bit more acquainted about what JavaScript is. But thank you for sharing. Okay, so in just a few minutes, we actually are going to go practice with the javascript.com. But I did want to stop the video right there. And just the keyword in this video was, you may have picked up on it, JavaScript is basically a programming language designed to give us a better user experience. If you know anything about the basic structure of a website, you may know that HTML makes the structure, the backbone of a website, and CSS works with that HTML to make your web page look good. JavaScript just makes the page come to life and lets you, as the user, do something with the pages. So if you use CSS and HTML without JavaScript, you still have a website, but it's just going to be something called a static website. So it's not going to really do much, but you can make it look good. And then I'm not going to bore you guys too much with history, but just to give you a little bit of background, like they said in the videos, in the early 90s, which I do remember these websites, the website, you couldn't really do very much with them. And JavaScript, whoops, let me go back. I got so excited here, skipped a couple of bit. But basically in the early 90s, you had web developers like amateur programmers and people with a background in art. They just wanted another way to add interactive elements to their web pages. And since JavaScript was born, and just bringing it, how it connects to Java because I know a lot of times you may think that they're the same. The name actually came out of a marketing strategy because people were already familiar with what the Java language was. The creators hoped that by naming this other language JavaScript, that would make it more popular. But as they said in the video, they are not the same. Any questions? All right, we're going to go on just a little bit. Okay, so I've got another little short video here that just talks a little bit about how all three of them fit together and a couple of things to keep in mind. All right, so that video was just another little recap of how the three basic languages fit together. And just, you may hear the terms front end and back end thrown around a lot. And these are foundational languages for the front end of the web development. And then the web browsers like Chrome, Safari, and Firefox just transform these three languages into what you see on the web. And they're constantly evolving. Any questions so far? Oops. Okay. All right. So why do we want to learn JavaScript? Why are you guys here today? I know that it is one of the most popular languages in the world. Depending on what you read, I think it's a toss-up between Python and JavaScript in terms of which one is more popular. It's also one of the easiest languages to learn. So they say. It's a great place if you're a self-taught coder or a new programmer. It's a great place to start learning. It runs on a lot of different types of computers, as you heard in the video before. It also will run right in your browser. It can run on your phone, so it runs on a lot of different computers. It just uses a text editor in your browser. And it's great for building web and mobile apps, for networking apps like chat, for building games. So it can be used for all types of things. And what do we do with it? Well, as you can see on your screen above, it's used for pop-up boxes, which we will be doing later today. But for so much more, you can also use it for creating clickable buttons, validating information. Again, I think I already mentioned games. Let's see, what else? For machine learning, virtual reality. So there's just a lot of things you can do with it once you've gotten the basics down and decide that maybe that's something you want to explore either in your own time or as possibly a career. So you heard in the video that we were going to get some hands-on experience with JavaScript.com. I am going to actually go to JavaScript.com, and you guys can either follow along with me, or if you want to open up your own browser and practice yourself. Can everybody see on their screen, looks like a yellow background that says JavaScript, 25 years of JavaScript? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, okay, all right. So what we're going to use JavaScript.com, this is just a chance for you guys to see the on-screen effect of what you're inputting. We're also going to be hearing some terms that are thrown around in JavaScript, and I'm going to do my best to define them as we go along. You may hear me repeating these definitions a lot throughout today, but one thing I am learning in my own coding journey, a lot of it's repetition and practice, practice, practice. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So, and pay attention to what either I'm typing in here or what you're typing in on the screen if you're going to use the exercise on your own web browser, because it is going to look very similar to what we'll be doing in our final activity in terms of how we structure our code. So this does give you a chance to be familiar for where you're going to be putting things like quotation marks, semicolons, parentheses, whether you capitalize something or not. But again, so if everybody's ready, I am going to go ahead and get started. So what it's telling me here to do is just to type in my name surrounded by quotes. And let's see what's going to happen. So if I just type in quotation mark, Christy, quotation mark, and my semicolon, and I press my enter button, what I've just done is I've created a string, which is a word, it's just text with quotes around it. All right, so as you see on the next screen, it says when we surround a word with quotes around it, it's called a string. And when we're done with that line of text or code, we finish it with a semicolon. You're also going to hear, and so just remember that when you finish a line of code in JavaScript, you're going to use your semicolon. Next thing we are going to do is we are going to dive into a function. That's a super important part of JavaScript. It's just a, whoops, I'm sorry, guys. Start over. There we go. So a function is just, I am so sorry. My mouse is very sensitive. A function is just a set of more complicated instructions that we can use as many times as we want to in our code. And we create functions by grouping statements together that'll work together to perform a particular task. And I'm sorry, I do hear some people in the library, so I apologize for the background noise. So on our JavaScript.com screen, are you guys still seeing the black screen that says functions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what we're going to try to do is create an alert. And before I do that, an alert is a type of function. And if we think about what I just said, it's going to be a task. What do you think is going to happen when I type in alert with a parenthesis and a semicolon? I'm going to guess it's going to create a pop-up box. So if I type in alert and a set of parentheses and add a semicolon and press my enter key. So I do see a pop-up box, and congratulations, that is your code working. That is a pop-up box, but nothing's in it. Let's see if we can click. Okay, so even if there's nothing in it, let's do something by putting in our name. So let's see. We are going to give some instructions by typing our string into the alert function. And hopefully we're going to create a pop-up box that has my name in the text of the pop-up box. Oops. I'm sorry, guys. A repetition, and practice. All right, so if I type in alert and my name, close my parentheses and type a semicolon. So you can see on my screen, we've got a pop-up box that has my name in it. So hopefully on your screen, if you're practicing yourselves, you should have been able to see a pop-up box with your name in it. All right, how's everybody doing? All right, let's see if we can do one more. Okay, variables. So you are going to get to hear the word variable thrown out a lot. Variables is just a way for us to store information in, I think of little boxes or containers. So so we can use them later. And again, without variables, our browser won't be able to remember our information. For example, if we are coding a program that will check a password, we need to have a variable store the information or the data for the correct password. And without a variable, our browser won't be able to store the, to check to see if the user has put in the right password. So in our example right here, what we are going to do is we are going to type in VAR for variable, and we're going to type in a variable name, which is going to be first name. And then we're going to type in the equal sign, and that's how we are going to assign something called a value to our variable. And Christy, and then I'm going to press my enter button. Okay, so now we have a variable called first name that has the string Christy stored inside of it. And so what do you guys think is going to happen if I type in first name? Anybody want to take a shot? Let's see what happens if I don't put a semicolon by it. It outputted my name. So if you guys typed in first name and you stored your name from the beginning, hopefully when you pressed enter after typing first name, your name would have been returned underneath it. Okay, so moving on to numbers. You can also have numbers. So you can put alert number. And one thing to keep in mind with numbers, as opposed to text, you do not put quotation marks. You don't use quotation marks with numbers. So if I put in just any number, I'm going to do 23 and press my semicolon and press enter. Let's see what happens. So I've got a pop-up box that says 23 in it. We can also do math in JavaScript. So if I type in, let's see, two numbers, any two numbers, 25 plus 15. Hopefully we're going to get 25 plus 15 is 40. Our answer is outputted below. And then you can also combine numbers with strings. So here we can create an alert that combines my name and a number and a string. And so if I type in alert, my first name plus a string of text, you can try changing is awesome to something else. What do you guys think is going to happen after I press the enter key? What should my message be? Let's see and find out. So I've just created an alert that says first name, which is my name, which I stored, that's my variable earlier, plus my string is awesome. All right, so that was just a really, really quick introduction to what the code looks like. How are we doing so far? Okay, get back to my slide here. All right, so moving on. Okay, so again, we talked a little bit earlier about how JavaScript is used. It's basically just used to manipulate CSS and HTML. But again, it's very different than those two languages. If you just remember that CSS is the formatting, it makes it look pretty, and HTML is the content. You have JavaScript to make your page just be more interactive, more responsive. And again, like we're going to see later in the day in the class, it's going to be used to create a pop-up box to check on someone's age. We can also use JavaScript to use logic that'll give us different responses. It'll respond differently depending on what the way the user answers. So what we're going to do in this next little activity, we're going to just not get too much into the details about what the code actually is, but hopefully this will give you guys an idea of how logic's being used. We're just going to turn a light bulb off and on, and depending on what we click, we will have a different answer. We have different code used. So I'm going to click on my slide right here where it says turn the light bulb off and on. And that's going to take us to, does everybody see the W3 Schools website? Thumbs up. Okay, great. So if you scroll all the way down, you should be looking at this turn on the light and turn off the light. And we're just going to click try it yourself. And what happens when you click the button turn on the light? It turns on, right? And what happens when you click the turn off the light button? It turns off, right? So basically all you're seeing on the screen on the left side, right here on this actual left side of the screen, is what the code looks like. And if you go in and look at the code, if you can see where my mouse is, you're actually looking at two different pictures. So depending on which button is being used, you actually have two different pictures embedded in the code. And that's in a very, very basic nutshell. That's all that you're really doing. You're just telling one button turns on the light, and we have a picture embedded of a light bulb turned on. And then you have on the other side, down here where it says SRC equals pick underscore bulb off. That's what we have associated with turning off the light. That's, again, it's going back to just trying to wrap your head around using logic. You're just telling the browser to do one thing with one picture and do something else with a different picture. Does that kind of understand and explain it a little bit? Okay. We're going to move on back to my. All right, so you may have heard me mention at the beginning class about syntax. All syntaxes, it's just a set of rules about how you write the code that how JavaScript programs are constructed. It may have looked really complicated when we were back on the previous the javascript.com page, because it was made up of a bunch of words and symbols. But all you're really doing, though, is storing information or data in your computer, so your computer can use it for later for things that you want to do. If we don't use the right syntax, the browser won't be able to interpret or decode our instructions. Does that kind of give you an idea of what syntax is? For me, for the longest time, I just couldn't quite wrap my head around what syntax really meant. But I think the more and more I practice this, I understand, well, this is, you always, for this to happen, you always need to have a semicolon in this instance. Or for this to happen, you'll have to have parentheses around this. And a lot of times you'll figure out if you're looking for, if you can't figure out why your code is wrong for a particular exercise, it's because something in your syntax is wrong. It's because you capitalized something when you shouldn't have. Or you may have put a set of quotation marks on the outside somewhere. And a lot of this is just going to be practice, 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 and going back and moving things around and trying and trying and trying. So don't get discouraged. And again, just go back and look at your code and see if you can find where you made a mistake. And I make mistakes all the time. So, but just some things to keep in mind about the syntax. So semicolons, as I've mentioned before, they are used when we're done with the line of code. Capitalization, JavaScript is case sensitive. So if you type my name all in lowercase letters, or my name with my in lowercase and the N capitalized for name, those are going to be two different variables. Those are storing two different pieces of information. Quotation marks, I mentioned earlier, when we surround a word with quotes, that's called a string. You're also going to hear parentheses, curly brackets, and braces thrown out a lot. Kind of a rule of thumb, but not 100%. You can, as to when you use what for when. The best answer I can give you is it depends. Parentheses generally are used when you're calling a function, something we'll get into in just a minute. They also will surround conditional statements. And they're also used whenever you're enforcing order of operations, like going back to math class. Braces are used to, let's see, enclose your blocks of code. And you want to group statements in a function together. You put those inside your braces. Okay, so this next slide that you're going to see is a chart. It's just basically a breakdown of how to write certain code to get a desired result. So our browsers were going to act as interpreters for JavaScript. A big advantage of JavaScript is that it can do calculations and make decisions without having to send information back to our server. But what we've got going on this page, we've got our code, which kind of just looks like, doesn't really make a lot of sense until you kind of get an idea of what it's supposed to be doing. So on the left side right here, we've got a variable, which we touched on earlier when we did our little practice exercise. All we're doing when we type in the code there, my name equals Sally, we're creating a variable called my name, and we're storing the value as Sally. So you could replace Sally with another name, like my name's Christy. You could have Christy instead of Sally. And then that just means that you're storing the value as Christy for it to be used later. Where you see alert, that's a type of function. All that we would be doing if we were typing in the code for an alert is creating a pop-up box that would say hello. Prompt, it's another type of function. It's just going to be asking something from you and from the user or the reader. So in this instance, it'd be asking you what your name is. And then you've got your greater than and your equal sign. That's something called a comparison operator. All we do with comparison operators is We compare the different values of our variables. I'm sorry, guys, it's kind of stormy here, so kind of windy here. So basically, that's just asking questions about our variables and writing code that it's going to make a different thing happen depending on what the answer to the question is. Again, we'll be using this in our final project, so pay attention to that greater than or equal sign. All you're really saying in this example with the greater than or equal sign is that if the value on our left is greater than the value on the right, it will return true. And then in this last example on our little chart, we are creating a variable, my name, and then whatever the user puts into the prompt, that's what the value will be. Oops. Any questions? Okay, going on to data types. Data types are classifications that we give to different types of data we use in programming. You need to understand that the concept of data types are important and how a computer will interpret the instructions. And so for a computer to understand the difference between a variable or a number or a text, it has to understand what kind of data type there is. And this chart is just kind of a breakdown of the different data types and what the code would look like. Without these different types and without understanding these different types, the computer wouldn't be able to solve anything. And the two that we're really focusing on today are going to be your variables and your functions. We're not going to really get into objects or arrays, but again, if you want to learn more about these, we have a lot of great resources that you can go on and look at. But basically, variables, like we looked at earlier, they have a custom name and they store data. Functions, all they're doing is saving and calling back more complex sets of instructions that you can use basically over and over again. Objects are variables that have properties or collections of related data. They're also separated by commas, and they're written with curly brackets. Arrays are just used to store multiple variables. Strings, again, just think of that as your text. Plain text, you put it in quotes. You can use single or double quotes. And then numbers, they do not need quotes. And you can also include numbers that have decimals. All right. Any questions? Everybody hanging in there? Thank you, guys. All right, so we're going to go over just a little bit more about variables, and I tried to break this down. Hopefully, this help was a little bit more helpful for me, at least with the part in the code in the middle with the boxes. What we're doing right here is eventually we want to create a pop-up box that'll say, my name is Sally, but first we have to create a variable. So what we've got in the middle is the actual code. And then the third column where it says page says, one thing about variables, it's not going to show up on your page yet until you tell it to do so with a command, but we have to store it first. So where it says page says nothing, it's not going to show up yet, but we have stored it. So again, they're an important part of JavaScript. They're just a way to store information in your web browser for a period of time. And then you can use the stored data to build programs that make your web page interactive. And without the variables, your browser is not going to have any way of remembering that information. So if we use JavaScript to code a program that will say a name, we need to use a variable that will store the data for the right name. That's all we're doing. And again, we can store it in the form of text or numbers. You're going to hear the term declaring the variable. All you're doing is you're just telling your browser that you're creating a variable. And let's see what else. And they are just a way for us to label our data with a descriptive name. So that's just a couple of things to keep in mind about creating a variable. Let's see. You need a keyword, which is our little box right here. It's var. You can also use let and const, C-O-N-S-T. Those are also keywords that you can use to declare variables. For this class's purpose, we're just going to be using var for our variable keyword. You also need a variable name. So you can see right here, we've got our var, that's our keyword. And then our variable name is my name. You're also going to need your assignment operator, which I didn't have room to squeeze in my box right here, but that's our equal sign right here. And that just assigns the value Sally to the variable name. And then finally, you have your value, which is Sally. A couple of rules to keep in mind with variables. They cannot start with numbers. They are case sensitive. And it's they cannot be the same name as a keyword. So I'm guessing you can't have a var, if that makes sense. And then just kind of in the box where I have how it looks, that's basically just kind of an illustration, just showing that variables are not values. They contain values and represent them with the name. And I'm talking about this column right here. So the box represents a variable, the values represented by the content, and the name is represented by the label. I hope that might make more sense if you're more of a visual person. Any questions? Just making sure we're doing okay on time. Okay, so we've got our variable, and now we want to do something with it maybe. So now we're going to go on to functions. And functions, as we discussed a little bit earlier, those are just statements that are grouped together that perform an action. So you'll hear in programming that we use code to perform a specific action or task over and over again. Well, instead of rewriting this code over and over, we can just take a group, we can group together a block of code and associate it with a particular task and reuse it whenever we need to do that task again. So all a function is just a reusable block of code that's going to group together a sequence of statements to perform a task. And I tried to use this slide to kind of like the previous one to kind of label the different parts of a function. So you see what you need for the code on the left side of the page. And then on the right side of the page, this is what hopefully it'll look like if you've done everything correctly. So breaking down the parts of a function and what you need. So you're going to need a function keyword, just like you need a variable keyword, you're going to need a function keyword. And that's what you need to do to declare or create your function. You're also going to need a function name right here. This is our function name. It's pretty descriptive, should be short and explain the action being performed. What are we doing here? We are telling me my name. It's also always going to end with a pair of parentheses. So you see right here, we've got our function keyword, our function name, and our pair of parentheses. So after our function name, you're going to need a pair of brackets. So you would just open a pair of brackets, and then all the statements that you want grouped together in the function go inside. And then you're going to have a statement that's going to form the body of your function. Just use as many as you want, and the block of code will run whenever you call the function. And then you have to call the function. You do that by typing the name of your function, including your parentheses. So here we are typing the name of our function. What's our function name? My name. We've included our parentheses. And then we follow with a semicolon. And after you've done this, you can call it anywhere in your script block, and it'll only run whenever you call it. Type in the name and follow with the parentheses and the semicolon. And if we've done all of this on the left-hand side correctly, our page should look like this. Okay, all right, so we are moving on to conditional statements. So this is what we're going to practice in our final exercise. So just like in life, we make decisions that are based on conditions or circumstances. So if we're tired, we go to sleep. If we're not tired, we wake up and go on about our day. So in code, we refer to these types of situations by creating conditional statements. And a conditional statement just checks a specific condition and performs a task based on that condition. And one of these types of conditional statements is something called an if-else statement. If statements are just a way to tell our browser to perform an instruction only if the condition of our variable is true. If that condition is false, our browser is not going to do the instruction in the code. In other words, you say, I want to run this code, but only under these circumstances. They are also going to be structured a certain way. We're always going to start with the word if, and it also needs to be lowercase. And then we are going to open up a pair of parentheses, and we put our rule inside for our if statement inside the parentheses. So then we would open up a pair of braces, and then we put inside those braces what we want to happen if that statement is true. And so we have our if keyword, set of parentheses, a block of code, then our set of curly brackets. And if we've done everything correctly, the code inside that those curly brackets is going to run. If it is false, nothing's going to happen. You with me so far? Okay, but then you notice on our screen, we also have the word else. So an else statement needs to be paired with an if statement. And so together they're referred to our if else statement. The else statement is just what we want to do if we want our outcome to be different. So it's going to follow pretty much the same structure. It is just following the code block of an if statement. It's wrapped with a set of curly brackets. The code inside the else statement will execute, if the if statement is false. So in our example on the screen, if our name is not Sally, you're going to be prompted, you're going to get an alert that says, please enter your name.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why does the action after the else not have to be in curly brackets?
And I was just looking at that myself. I think that may be a typo in my part. There should be, and I was just getting ready to point that out. If we were to try to run this right now, and that's a great catch. If we were to try to run this right now, we would get a big error message. There should be brackets before alert after the word else. And actually, if I can annotate my screen here, let me see if I can attempt to draw. So I think what we should have right here, let me try something, a different pen. Let's try this instead. So can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I apologize for my bracket drawing here, but if we were doing this correctly, this is what it should look like. So just like right here, where you've got your bracket here, what you want your alert, then your then what goes inside the parentheses and your semicolon, and then your bracket. For your else statement, the correct way to write it would be else bracket alert, the code, and your string inside the parentheses, and then your bracket here. So that's a great catch. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess I have one more question. So the exclamation point equal, is that means not equal to?
The null, that is a special value that that represents an empty or unknown value. I can look that up. I'm not that familiar with what the exclamation, but I can look that up for you and get back to you.
It's okay. I can look it up.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so just another kind of summarizing the if-else statement. Just type if, then a pair of parentheses, then your bracket. And then in our parentheses, we put our condition. In the bracket, we put the code to run. And then you close it with a semicolon.
I have a question. Why is it called condition?
Let's see. I think it's just called condition because it's kind of like a circumstance. So if because you're saying if we don't meet this circumstance or condition, we're going to have a different task that's going to be performed or different outcomes going to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, for now.
Okay, I can see if I can find a better way of describing it, because I think what you're doing with a conditional statement is you're checking on a specific condition, like if this condition is not met, then this is going to happen, or this is not going to happen. But if this condition is met, we want this to happen. Is that a little more?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see if I can find a better way of describing it.
Okay.
I don't think I'm doing it. I know I'm not doing a good enough job. That's and if anyone else has a better way to putting into words, please feel free to chime in.
Foreign, it just sounds foreign. That's all. I guess if
Yeah,
you
and
learning it, yeah.
JavaScript is
Mhm.
I know I said earlier it's a great beginner language, but not all of me especially. I am a true beginner, and so it is taking me a while to get my head wrapped around how to explain it.
Okay.
So I thank you all for bearing with me, and I will see if I can find a better way to explain it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Well, that concludes the lecture part of today. What we're going to do now, if you see on your screen, we are going to do a project where we create a pop-up box using conditional statement, the if and else conditional statement to that would theoretically let you into a brewery website depending on what you put in for the age. So if you click on, I don't think you'll be able to click on your screen, but if you go back to your email, the address to get to this online text editor should be in the activity sheet. I'm also going to do it on my my screen as well. If you want to follow along with me, you can, or if you just want to observe, you are welcome to do that. But what we are going to do is everybody able to pull up Glitch and the brewery age checker? If not, I can copy this and put it in the chat. And was everybody able to get to this website? Okay, so Glitch is just an online code editor. This is a great place to get some practice with seeing what code looks like in action. What we're going to do to get started, if you click on View Source, and so the first thing that we're going to do, and this is also the information right here where it says read me, these should be the instructions that you guys have in the activity sheet. We're not building the entire website. That's already been taken care of. The HTML and the basics are already there. All we're going to do for this exercise is create our pop-up box. And we're actually going to be creating, I think, 3 different pop-up boxes. But what we're doing if we start with our instructions right here, we are just using if-else logic to program a pop-up box to respond to welcome if we enter an age of 21 and up. And a different message is going to be showing up in our pop-up box if you put in an age that's less than 21. The first thing we're going to do is just look at your HTML and CSS. Really, for this class's purposes, we're going to be putting our JavaScript link in between. We're going to put it into our HTML file. So I'm going to go back to my README. And in number 2, it says, link your JavaScript file with your HTML file. So basically what we have to tell our browser, we're saying, hey, we're switching over from HTML to JavaScript. To do that, we have to put that into our code. And how we do that, I'm going to try copying and pasting everything that's highlighted in blue. I'm going to see if it'll let me do this. I may have to just go back and type it in. So I've copied this. I'm going to go back to my index.html. What I have to do to actually make changes, I have to click the remix to edit. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to press enter. And I'm going to put it in between these two right here, head and head. Let's see if it'll let me paste it. Okay. So now my browser knows that I'm switching to JavaScript. Now I'm going to go back to my instructions to see what I need to do next. Okay. So now I'm at number 3. Now we're going to create a pop-up box. So going back to what we've learned today, first we need to create and store a variable called age. So this is how we're going to remember that we've answered, how old are you? So the first thing that we want to do is we're going to create our variable, but we're going to put in this script.js file. So if I click on this file, there's nothing there, but this is where we're going to add it. So if I type in a variable, so here, this is where we are declaring a variable, creating our variable. The name is age. We have to put our equal sign in. And then we are also creating prompt. And then we're going to open up our parentheses. And since we're typing in text, we're going to put that in quotes. How old are you? Apologies, there's a train going by. And if I've done this correctly and close it with a semicolon, you may have seen something flash up very, very briefly. If I click my refresh button. Okay, so now I've created a pop-up box that's asking me, how old are you? So I'm just going to type in, not 21, but I'm going to type in 21. Nothing happens. So if we go back to our instructions, what we are wanting to do is get one message that says if we enter we're 21 and up, we're going to get a welcome box, or a different message that's going to show up a different condition, a different message if we have a different condition, being a less than 21 age. So going back to my JavaScript file, now this is where we are going to create our if-else statement. So if we use our format that we've got on your activity sheet, our activity sheet, the first thing we're going to do is type in if. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do, type in parentheses, open up a set of parentheses. Now we're going to type in our condition. It's going to be age greater than or equal to 21. And then I'm going to type in, now this is where we're going to say we want an alert, a pop-up box that says, welcome, if someone puts in their age as 21 or older. And so to do that, we are going to type in alert. We're going to open up a parentheses. Welcome. Okay. So I got my pop-up for putting in my age, my pop-up for what happens if I type in a 21 and up. But what happens if you're less than 21? Which so we want to get a different message to pop up if someone puts in that they're less than 21. So this is where we're going to put in our else statement. So to do that, we can type in else. We're going to open up a bracket. And then we want our different message to pop up. So we're going to type that in quotes. 21. Enter. And we're going to finish it all off with a semicolon. So now let's go back and refresh again. Okay, so I've already tested this with a 21 and up age, but let's see what happens if I put in 19. Okay, so this is the beauty of practicing. I made a mistake somewhere, or I left something off, because I do not see my pop-up for you must be 21. So what I'm going to go back and do, I'm just going to test it again. So nothing happened. So I'm going back to look to see what I left out. And this is why you always go back and check your code, because usually it's something like you put, and I think I know what I did wrong. Does anyone have any suggestions for what I may have done in the example, what I'm missing? Anyone want to take a guess? And I'll give you a hint. If I look back at my activity sheet at the hint, looking at my format for my if-else statements, I may have left something off after else. So if I go back and look at my if, so there's my if statement. And we want this to happen if you put in a number greater than or equal to 21. How do I get my words, you must be 21 to come up? Okay, Jorge said alert. So should I put alert after else maybe, or let's see what happens. And anytime you see this red, this is a pretty cool thing about glitch. Anytime you see a red button, that's an error somewhere. So I should know right off the bat, I have done something. And even if I click refresh, I know and this is what can be really frustrating about coding, and what can be really discouraging is because you're like, I'm so close, but I can't figure it out. But so I know that I need to put alert somewhere, but I left out something, or something's not in the right place. So maybe what I can do, maybe I can look back up here at my if statement and see, okay, well, in my if statement, I've got a bracket, and then I've got alert, but my parentheses and everything's kind of not together. So I'm something right here just isn't right. So I think what I'm going to do, I think what I've done wrong is I've put alert in the wrong place. So maybe I should have typed it after my curly bracket, and maybe I was supposed to put you must be 21 to enter in parentheses. And maybe that's what I did wrong. Okay. So now if I type in 19, not 193. Okay. So now if we go back to refreshing, let's see what's happening. So now if I type in 21, I get my welcome message. If I go back and type in 19, so everybody, that is a very, very quick crash course in if-else statements, pop-ups, alerts, and JavaScript. How's everybody doing?
I lost you on how you tested what you had. Like, how did you make it play?
Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm clicking my refresh button. If you're on a web browser, if you click refresh, that should let you test it.
Okay, I'll try that. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, well, the last thing then, if there aren't any more questions, I do want to show you guys where you can go for a much greater, a lot more help with coding and for more in-depth resources. Does anyone in here have a library card or not have a card?
Yeah, everybody should.
Okay, let's see. Well, let me just show you guys, because we do have a few more minutes left. I am going to show you, let's see if I can get into my stop screen share. I've got one more. Page that I can show. So does everyone see a screen that says additional learning resources? Okay, so these are all with the exception of the last one that says library, Codelab, YouTube. The rest of these are all self-guided, self-paced resources that you do have to have a library card to access. But these are phenomenal resources for learning all different types of programming languages. Is anyone familiar with any of these resources?
University class.
Okay.
Did a lot of courses with them.
Okay, well, great. Well, LinkedIn Learning and Universal Class and O'Reilly are three of these are just excellent for all different types of tech and business and career classes.
Okay.
So if you haven't had a chance to check them out, I would highly encourage you to do so. But you can get to them. I will be sending out a handout, another handout after class that will have all of these linked to it. But if you're not familiar with them, if you just click on, let me show you LinkedIn Learning. You do have to access it through the library's website, and you will need your card. But I can show you guys very quickly.
Misty, thank you for showing us this. I did put a direct link to
Okay.
the JavaScript section in the chat for everyone already. Would you like me to repost that?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we just had a few extra minutes, so I just wanted to see if
They put
anybody
it in
had
the
any
chat
other
for you.
questions. But here's LinkedIn Learning, and here are all the different, if you just wanted to look for more videos on JavaScript, there's a whole essential JavaScript training, how to become a developer, learning the different languages. So I did just want to share that with you guys.
So it'll be a little bit of what you did today, a lot more what you did
It would
today.
be a lot like this, like right here, just looking at, this is a course.
Yes.
There's also, if you're interested in becoming a developer, you know, this is actually, if you see there's a difference on the screen, this first one is a course. The second one is becoming, if you're interested in actually becoming a developer, this has something, it suggested an actual learning path, and it's going to say, hey, these are the LinkedIn learning classes that we recommend that you start with. And you can see here, they're, you know, 5 hours, 2 hours, an hour, you know. So we have people who will get library cards and pay a non-resident fee just to access LinkedIn Learning. So yeah, so today's class was just designed to give you kind of a little bit of an introduction. And again, if you want to go further down this path with JavaScript or a different language, I would really recommend that you check out the LinkedIn Learning. And LinkedIn, you can kind of skip around. Universal, I think if you go with one of their courses, you have to follow it it's kind of like taking a class, is that you have to do one segment before you can go on to the next segment.
Yes, that's how yours works.
And O'Reilly, that's one of our newer resources. And I'm just going to show it real quickly. If you're outside of a library, you will be prompted probably to put in your library card.
Yes.
But this is a lot of developer questions, a lot of books, videos. Let's just see what we have on JavaScript. So there's more than 18,000 results just from me doing JavaScript as a keyword search. But here again, you can do a learning path, and it's going to recommend books. There's also playlists and videos. There's something called a boot camp. So yeah, so I would just encourage you all to maybe explore these resources.
Yes.
And just let me know if you have any questions. What other questions do you guys have for us or for me? I appreciate you all for hanging in there with me. I had a few technical user errors.
Okay, it was great. It was great. The little bit that I did get in, but I just have a lot of playing around to do with this. I think I'm gonna do it because just something to trigger me.
Yeah. Are you interested in becoming a developer or coder, or not really sure? Or, yeah.
I'm interested in becoming a coder. Yes.
Okay. Well, I just encourage you to keep checking our calendar back, because we have a lot. One of the partners that we work with, their name is Queen City Bites. And
Yes.
they're mostly female tech, women in tech, mostly women, and they do all kinds of programs. We've had career roundtables. It's a great organization. Who's really been passionate about promoting what they do in the community, and they've been great to work with the library. They are the experts.
Would you say the name was Queen City Bites?
Queen City Bites.
I think I'm following them on Instagram. Okay.
Okay, great. They have a meetup page, and they post a lot of their programs on Meetup.
Yes.
And we've just been very fortunate to partner with them. And then just like I said, keep checking back our online calendar for things that we've got coming up. And yeah, we're just really excited to have you guys join us today. And you should all be very proud of yourselves. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, Christy. This was amazing. And thank you, everyone who was able to participate with us this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Hillary just put in the chat a link to our partners meetup. So I would encourage you to check out their page for upcoming events.
Okay. Thank you so much for that.
They're also on Twitter. They're everywhere. As you said,
Okay.
Instagram, Twitter, they're on Meetup. They are everywhere.
I think I'm sure I'm following them. But I haven't
Slack
been.
as well. If you're familiar, any of you with Slack, they are on Slack as well.
Okay, yes, okay. I had Slack for a minute too. I was trying to.
I figured you did. That's why I wanted to mention it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to go back on and get in another class. I'm going to come back to this class because I missed a lot. So at least if I can find that y'all got an activity sheet out there, I'm going to work on it.
Well, I will tell you, we are hoping to offer more of these different coding classes, just kind of to give people a taste of the different languages. And we just did a coding 101 about a month ago that Hillary on our screen here, she taught it, and it was a wonderful way to get an overview of how to build a website using all three languages, your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And this month, it was my month to try out doing a JavaScript class. We've got a couple of other team members planning Python and SQL. Again, just beginner, quick hour-and-a-half long, just to kind of get people aware of what the different languages are. And, you don't have to know them all, but if you're interested in becoming a coder or a developer, these are great little classes just to give you an idea of, hey, maybe this is something I'm interested in, or oops, not for me, and there might be, and I would just encourage you to again, just keep coming back because they are always free. And, especially if you have an interest in the tech field, because that is a very, very happening field.
Right.
Some great pieces for you for software engineering foundation.
Okay.
So if you want to offset your pieces.
Well, thank you so much for this. I mean, like I said, I'm going to come on back.
All right.
Great day. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, Christy and Hillary.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.